The envelope arrived at his penthouse. The same Tuesday morning Grayson Norris realized he had been looking forward to Tuesdays more than board meetings. And that was saying something for a man who built a luxury hotel empire from the ground up. He stood in his kitchen, espresso machine hissing behind him, holding a pale pink envelope addressed to Zara Owens, apartment 4B. The same building, 6 floors below his penthouse. This had been happening for 3 months now, ever since the Postal Service apparently decided that 4B and the penthouse suite were interchangeable. The first time it happened, Grayson had simply left it with the doorman. The second time, he had done the same. But the third time, curiosity got the better of him, and he had knocked on her door himself. That was 8 weeks ago, and he had been personally delivering her mail ever since, sometimes going so far as to intercept it from his own mailbox before his assistant could sort through it. He told himself it was about being neighborly. He told himself it was the right thing to do. He did not tell himself that Zara Owens had the most genuine smile he had ever seen, or that she answered the door in paint splattered overalls more often than not, or that she always invited him in for coffee that tasted terrible, but somehow made his mornings better. Grayson looked at the envelope. It was from an art gallery in Soho. He had memorized the return addresses by now, knew which ones made her eyes light up and which ones made her shoulders tense. This one would be good news, he thought. He hoped. He changed out of his suit and into jeans and a fitted black sweater. His CFO would have a heart attack if she knew he was delaying their 9 o'clock call for this, but some things mattered more than quarterly reports. That thought alone should have terrified him. Grayson Norris did not do spontaneity. He did not do casual. He certainly did not do whatever this was. The elevator ride down 6 floors felt longer than usual. He had bought this building 5 years ago, converted it into luxury apartments, kept the penthouse for himself, and never once paid attention to his neighbors. Now he knew that Mrs. Chen in 8A made dumplings every Sunday, that the couple in 6C were expecting twins, and that Zara Owens in 4B was a sculptor who worked nights and drank her coffee black with enough sugar to make his teeth hurt just watching. He knocked on her door at 8:30, which was early for her. She worked until 3 or 4 in the morning most nights, slept until noon, then started the whole cycle over again. But he had learned her patterns. She would be awake, probably sketching over breakfast, definitely still in pajamas. The door opened, and Zara stood there in flannel pants covered in tiny paint brushes and an oversized gray shirt that slipped off one shoulder. Her dark hair was piled on top of her head in a mess that should not have been attractive but absolutely was. She had a smudge of what looked like charcoal on her cheek. "You have got to be kidding me," she said, but she was smiling. Again. Grayson held up the envelope. "I am starting to think you are bribing the postal worker." "Oh yes, because I definitely have the funds to bribe anyone." She stepped back to let him in. "Coffee? I should not. I have a meeting in 20 minutes. That is not what I asked." She was already walking toward her kitchen, which was really just a corner of her studio apartment with a hot plate and a mini fridge that had seen better days. Grayson followed her inside, as he always did. Her apartment was chaos in the best way. Sculptures in various stages of completion covered every surface. A massive piece that looked like a wave frozen in metal took up most of the main space. Sketches were taped to the walls, covering the boring beige paint with explosions of creativity. It smelled like clay and coffee, and something floral he could never quite place. "This is new," he said, nodding toward a smaller sculpture on her makeshift kitchen counter. It was a woman's face, or half of one, emerging from what looked like roots or branches. "It is beautiful." Zara glanced at it while measuring coffee grounds. It is frustration made physical. The gallery that was supposed to show my work next month just canceled. Budget cuts, they said. Which is code for they found someone more profitable. That gallery, Grayson pointed at the envelope he had set on the counter. No, different one. That is probably a rejection from Soho Contemporary. I am on a roll lately. Her voice was light, but he could hear the disappointment underneath. He wanted to tell her he owned 3 buildings in Soho and could make a phone call that would have every gallery in the district begging for her work. He wanted to tell her that the sculpture in front of him was better than half the pieces he had seen in museums. He wanted to tell her a lot of things, but Zara did not know who he was. Not really. She knew his first name. She knew he lived in the penthouse. She had never asked what he did for a living, and he had never volunteered the information. In her world, he was just Grayson, the guy who brought her mail and drank her terrible coffee. "You have not opened it," he said instead. "I am building up to it." She poured hot water over the grounds using a method that could not technically be called brewing. Rejection is easier on caffeine. What if it is not rejection? Then I will dance around this apartment and probably knock over something expensive. She handed him a chipped mug with "World's Okayest Artist" printed on the side. It was his mug now, apparently. She had designated it as such 3 weeks ago. Grayson took a sip and managed not to wince. It tasted like battery acid and optimism. "Open it. Bossy this morning. Zara." She rolled her eyes but picked up the envelope, sliding her finger under the flap. He watched her face as she read, saw the moment her expression shifted from guarded to shocked to something that looked like hope. "They want to meet with me," she whispered. "Soho Contemporary wants to meet about a potential show. See, not a rejection. They want to meet tomorrow." She looked up at him, eyes wide. "Tomorrow, Grayson. I do not have enough pieces ready. I do not have anything ready. My portfolio is a disaster, and I am pretty sure I do not own anything appropriate to wear to a meeting with, oh my God, they mentioned Diane Hester in this email. Diane Hester might be at this meeting. She is only one of the most important curators in New York. I am going to throw up." Grayson set down his mug and gently took the paper from her shaking hands. "Breathe." "I am breathing. This is me breathing while having a small breakdown." "You are talented enough to show anywhere in this city. You know that, right?" She laughed, but it sounded unsteady. "You have seen exactly 3 of my pieces, and one of them is literally called Frustration. You are not exactly an objective critic. I have seen more than 3. At her confused look, he continued, "You leave your curtains open when you work at night. From my windows, I can see right down into your apartment. I have probably seen 24 of your sculptures." Zara stared at him. "That is either really creepy or really sweet, and I have not decided which." "I am going with sweet." He handed the letter back to her. "What time is the meeting?" 2 in the afternoon. "Good. That gives you time to prepare. What do you need? A miracle? A new personality? The ability to talk to important people without saying something stupid?" "Zara." "I do not know, Grayson. I need to figure out which pieces to include in my portfolio. I need to practice talking about my work without sounding like an idiot. I need." She stopped, looking at him. "You are going to be late for your meeting." He had completely forgotten about the meeting. His CFO was probably calling him right now. "It can wait." "No, it cannot. You are wearing your work clothes." "Well, your casual work clothes, but still. Go, do whatever important things you do. I will figure this out." Grayson did not move. "I could help." "You have already helped by bringing me the letter and by not judging my coffee." "Your coffee is terrible. I know. You drink it anyway." She smiled at him, and there it was again, that genuine warmth that made him feel like he was standing in sunshine. "Thank you, Grayson. Really. For everything." He left because staying would have meant kissing her, and that would have complicated everything. The elevator ride back to his penthouse felt longer than it should have. His phone showed 6 missed calls and a dozen texts. He ignored all of them, walked to his window, and looked down. 6 floors below, he could see right into Zara's apartment. She was moving around, pulling out sculptures, looking at them critically, putting them back. He watched her for longer than he should have before finally calling his CFO back. The rest of the day disappeared into conference calls and contract negotiations. He closed a deal for a new property in Miami, approved renovations for the Tokyo location, and sat through a presentation about expanding into the European market. His mind was in Soho, wondering if Zara was still panicking, if she had eaten anything, if she needed help. At 6 in the evening, he did something he had never done before. He left the office early. His assistant nearly fell out of her chair when he said he was done for the day. He stopped at an Italian restaurant Zara had mentioned loving but said was too expensive for her budget, ordered enough food for 4 people, and headed back to the building. She answered on the second knock, still in the same pajamas, now with additional charcoal smudges on her arms and possibly in her hair. "Did you eat today?" he asked. "I had coffee. That counts." "It does not count." He held up the bags of food. "I brought dinner." Zara looked at the bags, then at him, then back at the bags. "Is that from Marcello's? You said you liked it." "I said I liked it before I knew what a plate of pasta there costs. Grayson, you cannot just show up with $50 worth of Italian food." It was closer to 150, actually. "There are several entrees, some appetizers, and tiramisu because you mentioned once that it was your favorite dessert." She continued staring at him. "Who are you?" It was the opening he had been both dreading and hoping for. "Can I come in?" She stepped aside without a word. He carried the food to her kitchen area, started unpacking containers. She watched him in silence, which was unusual for her. Zara filled silence the way her sculptures filled space, with energy and presence and life. "You are freaking me out with the quiet," he said finally. "I am trying to figure out what is happening here. We are having dinner. People do this. People do not show up with absurdly expensive meals on a random Tuesday unless there is a reason. Grayson, are you okay? Did something happen? Is this a breakup meal? Wait, we are not dating, so it cannot be a breakup meal. Is this a friend breakup meal? Are you moving? Oh God, are you sick?" He could not help it. He laughed, really laughed in a way he had not in months, maybe years. "I am not sick. I am not moving. This is not any kind of breakup." "Then what is it?" "It is me realizing that I look forward to seeing you more than anything else in my week. It is me wanting to make sure you eat and sleep and do not panic about tomorrow. It is me being terrible at this." "Terrible at what?" "At telling you that I have feelings for you that go way beyond neighborly concern." Zara sat down on one of her mismatched stools. "Oh, he repeated. "That is all you have?" "I am processing. Give me a second. I am usually better with words, but apparently not right now." She took a breath. "You have feelings for me?" "Yes." "And you brought me dinner because of these feelings?" "Yes." "And you have been delivering my mail personally for 2 months because it gave me an excuse to see you." "Because I am a 34-year-old man who apparently never learned how to just ask someone to dinner like a normal person." "You are 34. That is your question." "I am 28. I was making sure we are in reasonable age range territory." Despite everything, he smiled. "We are in reasonable territory. Good. Okay, next question. What do you do for a living?" This was it. The moment where everything either continued or ended. "I own hotels. A lot of them. Norris Luxury Group. I started it 10 years ago with 1 property and a massive amount of debt. Now we have 43 locations worldwide." He watched her process this information, watched her eyes go wide, then narrow, then wide again. Norris Luxury Group. The Norris Luxury Group. The hotel chain that is famous for being impossible to book and absurdly expensive, and having that suite in Dubai that costs $10,000 a night. $15,000 actually. They raised the price last year. You own this building. Yes, you are rich, like really rich. Like billionaire rich. The distinction between millions and billions is not as dramatic as people think, but yes, I am financially comfortable. Zara stood up, paced to her sculpture of the wave, paced back. You have been drinking my terrible coffee and eating my mediocre cookies and listening to me complain about how expensive pasta is while being a literal billionaire. Your cookies are not mediocre, Grayson. I did not tell you because this was nice. You treated me like a person, not like a bank account or a business opportunity. When I am with you, I am just Grayson. Not the CEO, not the billionaire, just a guy who likes spending time with a brilliant sculptor who makes terrible coffee. She was quiet for a long moment. I feel like I should be angry, but I am mostly confused. You could have anyone. You could date models or actresses or other billionaires. Why are you standing in my tiny apartment with overpriced pasta declaring feelings for me? Because you are the first person in years who has made me feel like myself. Because your work is extraordinary and you do not even see it. Because you smile with your whole face and you talk about art like other people talk about breathing. Because I have been watching you through my window for weeks like some kind of stalker, and the only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. He crossed the small space between them, close enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes, close enough to smell that floral scent that was probably just her shampoo, but had been driving him crazy for months. I am a mess, Grayson. I can barely afford rent. My career is held together with hope and stubbornness. I eat cereal for dinner more often than I want to admit. You deserve someone who has their life together. I spent 15 hours in meetings today discussing profit margins and market expansion. I ate lunch at my desk and dinner in my car. I live in a penthouse that a designer decorated, and I could not tell you the color of my own bedroom walls. You think you are a mess. At least you are doing something that matters. At least you are creating something beautiful. Hotels matter. Not the way art does. Zara reached up and wiped the charcoal smudge off her own cheek, realized she just made it worse, and laughed. It was a shaky sound, but it was real. This is insane. This whole thing is insane. I know. I have a meeting tomorrow that could change my whole career. I know. And you show up tonight and tell me all of this. My timing has never been great. She looked at him for a long moment and he could not read her expression. Then she reached up, pulled his face down to hers and kissed him. It was quick, barely more than a press of lips, but it felt like jumping off a cliff and learning to fly at the same time. I have had a crush on you since the second time you delivered my mail, she whispered against his mouth. You were wearing a suit and you looked so serious, and then you smiled and I forgot how words worked. You told me I had nice teeth. It was all I could think of. You do have nice teeth. This is the strangest conversation I have ever had. Get used to it. I am kind of weird. He kissed her again, properly this time, taking his time. She tasted like coffee and charcoal dust, and it was perfect. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling that smile, the one that made his entire day better. We should eat before the food gets cold, she said. They ate sitting on her floor, backs against the wall, containers spread out between them. She told him about her meeting tomorrow, about her fears and hopes, and the fact that she had no idea what to wear. He told her about his day, about the Miami deal, about how he had been thinking about her through every boring conference call. They talked until the food was gone and the sun had set completely. Her apartment lit only by the streetlights outside and the lamp she used for night work. "I should let you sleep," Grayson said eventually, though he made no move to leave. "You need to be ready for tomorrow. Stay for a little while longer." So he did. They moved to her worn couch and she curled into his side like she had been doing it for years instead of minutes. He wrapped his arm around her and thought about how strange it was that this felt more natural than anything else in his carefully constructed life. "Grayson, yes. If this is real, if we are really doing this, you have to promise me something. Anything. No special treatment because of who you are. No calls to galleries. No buying my art to help me out. No fixing my problems with your money. If we do this, I need to know I am making it on my own." He understood what she was asking, even if it went against every instinct he had. "That is going to be hard for me, I know, but I need it. I need to know that anything I achieve is because I earned it, not because I am with you." "Okay," he said quietly. "I promise." She relaxed against him. "Thank you." They stayed like that until she started to doze off, her breathing evening out, her weight heavy and warm against him. Grayson carefully extracted himself, grabbed a blanket from her bed and covered her. She mumbled something that might have been his name or might have been nonsense. He kissed her forehead and let himself out, riding the elevator back up to his penthouse with a smile he could not quite suppress. His phone was full of angry messages from his CFO, 3 voicemails from his head of operations, and a text from his assistant asking if he had been abducted. He ignored all of them and went to bed thinking about Zara sleeping 6 floors below, surrounded by her art and her dreams. The next morning, he woke up earlier than usual and immediately looked out his window. Zara's apartment was already lit, and he could see her moving around frantically. He smiled, got dressed in record time, and headed down with 2 cups of real coffee from the shop she had pointed out once, but said was too expensive for her daily budget. She opened the door in a towel, hair dripping wet, mascara smudged under one eye. "I slept through my alarm. The meeting is in 4 hours. I still do not know what to wear. My portfolio is a disaster. Why are you smiling? Because you are beautiful when you panic. I am wet and half naked and definitely not beautiful right now. Wrong on that last count." He handed her the coffee. "This is from Hendrix Coffee. You take it black with too much sugar." She looked at the cup like he had handed her gold. "You remembered." "I remember everything you tell me." Zara took a long sip, closed her eyes, and sighed. "This is so much better than my coffee." "Everything is better than your coffee." Rude but accurate. She opened her eyes and looked at him. "Are you here to help if you want me?" "I want you." She seemed to realize what she said and flushed. "I mean, I want your help with the meeting preparation. Because you are here and offering and I am panicking." "I know what you meant." But he was still smiling as he followed her inside. The next 3 hours were controlled chaos. Zara changed outfits 6 times before settling on black pants and a deep green blouse that brought out the gold in her eyes. Grayson helped her arrange her portfolio, pointing out which pieces were strongest, asking her questions about her process so she could practice talking about her work. She paced and worried and drank coffee until she was probably vibrating with caffeine. "You are going to be amazing," he told her as she checked her reflection for the 10th time. "You do not know that." "I do. They asked for this meeting because they saw something special in your work. Now go show them they were right." She turned to face him and he could see the fear in her eyes but also the determination. "Will you be here when I get back?" "Where else would I be? Running your empire, buying hotels, whatever it is billionaires do on Wednesday afternoons. I will be here." She kissed him quickly, grabbed her portfolio bag and headed for the door. Halfway out she turned back. "Grayson, Yes, thank you, for everything. Then she was gone, and he was alone in her apartment surrounded by her sculptures and her dreams. He should have gone back to work. He had a dozen things that needed his attention. Instead, he started cleaning. He washed her dishes, organized her art supplies, fixed the loose hinge on her cabinet door that she had mentioned annoyed her. He told himself he was just being helpful. He did not examine too closely why being in her space, taking care of her things, felt so right. Around 1 in the afternoon, his assistant called for the third time. He finally answered. "Mr. Norris, thank God. I thought you were dead." "I am fine, Patricia. Just taking a personal day." There was a long pause. "You do not take personal days." "I am taking one now. Reschedule everything for the rest of the week." "The rest of the week? Sir, you have the Singapore investors tomorrow, the board meeting on Friday, move them, all of them. May I ask why?" "No." Another pause. "Does this have anything to do with the woman in apartment 4B? Grayson froze. "How do you know about that, sir? I have been your assistant for 6 years. I know everything. Also, the doorman mentioned you have been hand-delivering mail to the same apartment for 2 months. I put 2 and 2 together. "Patricia, you are terrifying." "Thank you, sir. Should I send flowers?" "No flowers. She would hate that." "Noted. Anything else?" "Clear my schedule for the rest of the week." "Already doing it." "Good luck, Mr. Norris." She hung up before he could ask what exactly she thought he needed luck for. He spent the rest of the afternoon in Zara's apartment, alternating between working on his laptop and watching the clock. The meeting should have started by now. She was probably sitting in some gallery office, showing her portfolio, talking about her process. He hoped they could see what he saw, the raw talent and passion that poured out of every piece she created. His phone rang at 3:30. Unknown number. He answered anyway. "Is this Grayson Norris?" "Yes, who is this?" "This is Deanne Hester from Soho Contemporary. I am sitting here with a very talented young woman named Zara Owens who listed you as an emergency contact. She said you would know why I am calling." His heart stopped. "Is she okay?" "She is fine. More than fine, actually. I wanted to extend a courtesy call to let you know that she will be later than expected. We have been discussing her work for the past hour and a half, and I would like to continue the conversation over dinner if she is amenable. I assume you have no objections." "None at all. Thank you for calling." "Mr. Norris, she is extraordinarily talented. I look forward to working with her." The call ended, and Grayson sat down on Zara's couch feeling like he might float away. She had done it. He had known she would, but hearing it confirmed was something else entirely. He ordered more food, set up a small celebration in her apartment, and waited. She came home at almost 9 in the evening, looking exhausted and exhilarated and more beautiful than he had ever seen her. "They want to give me a show," she said from the doorway. "Not a group show, not a small corner. A full show, Grayson, 3 months from now. Deanne Hester thinks I am talented." She used the word remarkable. She said remarkable. He crossed to her, pulled her into his arms, and held her while she cried happy tears into his shirt. "I told you," he whispered into her hair. "I told you that you were good enough. I was so scared. I thought I would mess it up, say something stupid, but Grayson, they loved my work. They really loved it. Because it is incredible. Because you are incredible." She pulled back to look at him, mascara running, eyes bright. "I listed you as my emergency contact. I hope that was okay. They asked for a number and you were the first person I thought of. It was more than okay." She noticed the food, the candles he had lit, the bottle of champagne he had bought from the expensive shop downtown. "You did this for me. We are celebrating. We have not known each other that long and you are doing all of this. Zara, I have been half in love with you since you opened your door the first time and told me I had nice teeth. This is nothing." "Half in love," He had not meant to say that. It was too soon, too much, too honest. But looking at her now, standing in her apartment that smelled like coffee and flowers, her face still showing the remnants of happy tears, he could not take it back. Did not want to. Half in love, he confirmed. Working my way to fully. I would say it is a process, but honestly I think I am already there. She kissed him, and it was different from the night before. Deeper, more certain, full of promise. When they broke apart, she was smiling. I think I am already there too, she whispered. Which is crazy because this is crazy, but I do not care. I am too happy to care about logic right now. They ate and drank champagne and talked about her meeting. She told him every detail, every compliment, every moment she had been sure she would mess it up, but somehow did not. He listened and watched her come alive with excitement, and he thought about how he would do anything to keep her this happy for the rest of her life. I should go, he said eventually, though he wanted to stay. You need to sleep. You have had a long day. Stay, she said. Just to sleep. I do not want to be alone tonight. So he stayed. They fell asleep in her tiny bed, tangled together, and Grayson thought that this was better than his king-sized mattress in his designer penthouse. This was better than everything. The next 3 months moved faster than either of them expected. Zara threw herself into preparing for her show, working 18-hour days, creating new pieces, perfecting old ones. Grayson restructured his entire schedule to be around more, working from her apartment when she would let him, bringing food and coffee and quiet company. They fell into a rhythm that felt like they had been doing it for years instead of weeks. He kept his promise about not interfering, even when it killed him. When she mentioned struggling to afford materials, he did not offer to pay. When she worried about framing costs, he did not pull out his credit card. Instead, he helped her apply for grants, connected her with resources available to all artists, held her when she cried from stress and exhaustion. I do not know how I did this before you, she said one night, 2 weeks before her show. They were lying on her floor, staring at the ceiling, too tired to move to the bed. You would have figured it out. You always do. Maybe, but it is easier with you here. He turned his head to look at her. I like being here. Even though my apartment is tiny and my bed is uncomfortable and I make terrible coffee, especially because of all of that. She rolled onto her side, propped her head on her hand. Move in with me. What? Move in with me. I know it is fast and probably crazy, but Grayson, you are here every day anyway. Your toothbrush is in my bathroom. You have a drawer in my dresser. We might as well make it official. Zara, my apartment is 10 times the size of yours. It has actual rooms and a kitchen that works and a shower with water pressure. If we are going to live together, we should live there. Oh, she looked away. Right, that makes more sense. He caught her chin, turned her face back to his. But I will move in here if that is what you want. I do not care where we are as long as we are together. You would really give up your penthouse to live in my tiny studio in a heartbeat. She kissed him softly. How about a compromise? We stay at my place sometimes and yours sometimes until I can afford to contribute to a place that is actually ours. I do not want to be the girlfriend who mooches off your success. You could never be that. Still, let me do this my way. After the show, I will hopefully have money from sales. We can figure it out then. Okay, he agreed, even though he wanted to tell her she could move into his place tomorrow and never worry about rent again. But he understood what she needed, and he loved her enough to give it to her. The night of her show arrived with terrifying speed. Grayson wore his best suit and watched Zara pace in her green dress, the same color as the blouse from her first meeting. She looked stunning and absolutely terrified. What if no one comes? What if they come but they hate everything? What if I trip and knock over a sculpture? What if, Zara? He caught her hands, stilled her movement. Breathe. I am breathing. You are panicking. There is a difference. I have a right to panic. This is my entire career in one night. This is one night in a long career. No matter what happens, you are talented and people will see that. She leaned her forehead against his chest. When did you get so wise? When I fell in love with an artist who does not see how amazing she is. You love me, he pulled back to look at her. You are surprised. You have not said it, not in those exact words. I love you, Zara Owens. I have loved you since you told me my teeth were nice and made me the worst coffee I have ever tasted. I love your passion and your talent and the way you smile with your whole face. I love that you refuse to let me make your life easier even though I want to. I love you, and I am going to love you for a very long time. She was crying again, but she was also smiling. I love you too. Even though you are a billionaire and that is still weird, even though you drink my terrible coffee and never complain, I love you so much it scares me. Good scared or bad scared? Good scared. The kind that means this matters. They kissed, and he tasted salt from her tears and something that felt like forever. The gallery was packed when they arrived. Grayson had been to 1,000 events like this, schmoozing and networking, but this was different. This was Zara's night, and he stayed in the background, watching her shine. She was nervous at first, stumbling over explanations, but Diane Hester stayed close, guiding her, introducing her to collectors and critics and other artists. He watched a red dot appear next to one of her pieces, then another, then 5 more. By the end of the night, 3/4 of her work had sold, and she had a waiting list for future pieces. She found him in the crowd as people were leaving, launched herself into his arms. Did you see? People bought my art. They actually paid money for things I made. I saw. I am so proud of you. Deanne said this is the most successful emerging artist show they have had in 5 years. 5 years, Grayson. That is amazing. She pulled back, narrowed her eyes at him. You did not buy anything, did you? Please tell me you did not buy anything. I kept my promise. I did not buy a single piece. Good. Okay. Good. But I am going to commission something from you. That does not count as special treatment because I am paying full price and you are going to make me work for it. What kind of commission? Something for the lobby of my newest hotel. The one opening in London next year. I want a Zara Owens original and I want to pay whatever you think it is worth. She stared at him. Are you serious? Completely, if you are interested. No pressure if you are not. Not interested, Grayson, that would be huge. A piece in a Norris hotel. That is the kind of exposure artists dream about. So that is a yes. That is absolutely a yes. They went back to his place that night because it was closer and she was exhausted. She fell asleep in his bed, still in her green dress, a smile on her face. Grayson covered her with a blanket and stood at his window, looking down at the building where this had all started. A postal error had brought them together. The universe had a strange sense of humor. His phone buzzed with a text from Patricia. Saw the news about the show. Congratulations to Miss Owens. You picked a good one, sir. He smiled and put the phone away. Tomorrow he would deal with work, with emails and contracts and the million things that demanded his attention. Tonight, he had everything he needed sleeping in his bed, wearing a green dress and a smile. Zara woke up the next morning confused about where she was until she saw Grayson asleep beside her. His suit jacket was draped over a chair, his tie loosened, his face relaxed in a way she rarely saw during the day. She studied him in the early light, this man who had somehow become her entire world in just a few months. She carefully got out of bed and explored his penthouse properly for the first time. It was beautiful in the way expensive things were beautiful. All clean lines and designer furniture and art that probably cost more than she made in a year. But it felt empty somehow, like a hotel room that no one actually lived in. There were no personal photos, no clutter, nothing that said Grayson lived here beyond the coffee mug on the kitchen counter that she recognized from her apartment. "You are awake early," he said from behind her, voice rough with sleep. I could not sleep. Too much excitement from last night. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. "Any regrets about the show? None about you, also none. Good," she turned in his arms. "Your place is beautiful." "But, no but, it is beautiful." "Zara, I can hear the but in your voice." She sighed. "It just does not feel like you, it feels like a showroom. Where are your personal things, your photos, your mess?" "I am not really a mess person." "Everyone is a mess person, you are just hiding it very well." She walked to his bookshelf, which was full of matching leather-bound volumes that looked like they had never been opened. "Have you read any of these? They came with the place." "Grayson." "I know, it is depressing. I spend most of my time working or at your apartment." "This is just where I sleep." "Then let's change that. Let's make this place actually feel like home." Over the next month, they transformed his penthouse. Zara brought over some of her smaller sculptures, adding color and life to the sterile space. They bought real books, the kind with creased spines and dog-eared pages. She convinced him to hang photos on the walls, pictures of them together, of places they had been, of moments that mattered. Slowly, the penthouse became less of a showroom and more of a home. The commission for the London hotel became Zara's biggest project yet. She sketched for weeks, consulting with Grayson about the space, the lighting, the feeling he wanted to create. Finally, she settled on a design. Two figures reaching for each other across empty space, not quite touching, the negative space between them shaped like a heart. She called it Almost There and poured everything she had into making it perfect. Grayson visited her studio every day to watch her work, bringing food and sitting quietly, answering emails while she welded and shaped and created. Sometimes she would ask his opinion, and he learned to tell her what he really thought instead of just saying everything was perfect. She appreciated the honesty even when it stung. "You are my favorite distraction," she told him one night, covered in metal dust, exhausted and happy. "I am trying not to be distracting. You are distracting just by existing, but I like having you here anyway." 6 months after they met, Grayson took her to London to see where the sculpture would be installed. The hotel was still under construction, all exposed beams and scaffolding, but she could see the vision. The lobby was massive, all glass and light, with a perfect spot for her piece right in the center. "It will be the first thing people see when they walk in," Grayson said, standing beside her in hard hats that the contractor insisted they wear. "Your art welcoming them to London. No pressure or anything. You can handle it." They spent a week in London, exploring the city, eating at restaurants that Zara said were too expensive until Grayson reminded her that she could afford them now. Her work was selling faster than she could create it. Deanne Hester had become her agent and was fielding offers from galleries across the country. Zara was successful, truly successful, and she had done it on her own terms. "I have something for you," Grayson said on their last night in London. They were in his hotel room overlooking the Thames, the city lights spread out below them like scattered diamonds. "If it is jewelry, I am going to be annoyed. I told you no expensive gifts." "It is not jewelry." He handed her a small box, simple brown cardboard, nothing fancy. She opened it carefully and found a key inside. Just a key, slightly tarnished, old-looking. "I do not understand." "That is the key to the first hotel I ever owned, the property in Boston that started everything. I have been carrying it in my pocket for 10 years as a reminder of where I came from." "Grayson, I cannot take this. This is important to you. You are important to me, more important than anything else. I want you to have it because you remind me why I started all of this. Not for the money or the success, but because I wanted to build something that mattered. You do that every time you create something. You build things that matter. She was crying again, and he was starting to recognize this as her default emotional setting. You cannot just say things like that and expect me to function normally. I love you. I love you too, you impossible man. He kissed her, and somewhere in the distance, Big Ben chimed midnight, and Zara thought about how her life had changed because of a postal error. She would have to send that mail carrier a thank you card. A really big one. They flew back to New York the next day, back to their routine of splitting time between her studio and his penthouse, of terrible coffee and late-night conversations, and falling more in love with every passing day. Zara finished the sculpture for London and cried when it was installed, standing in the lobby of Grayson's newest hotel, her name on a plaque beneath it for the world to see. A year after they met, Grayson proposed. Not with a grand gesture or a public display, but in her tiny studio apartment where it all began, on a Tuesday morning, holding a cup of terrible coffee and a ring that he had commissioned from her favorite jewelry designer. "Marry me," he said. No preamble, no speech, just those two words. "You are supposed to ask, not demand," she said, but she was already crying, already reaching for the ring. "Zara Owens, will you marry me and continue making terrible coffee for the rest of our lives?" "Yes, absolutely yes." The ring fit perfectly. A simple band with a small diamond that caught the light and scattered it across her walls like stars. She kissed him until they were both breathless, until the coffee went cold, until the morning disappeared into afternoon. They got married 6 months later in a small ceremony at the London hotel, standing beneath her sculpture, surrounded by friends and family and the art that had brought them together. Diane Hester was there, and Patricia, and Mrs. Chen from 8A who brought dumplings. Zara wore a dress the color of her first meeting with the gallery, and Grayson could not stop smiling. "You are stuck with me now," she whispered during their first dance. "Best thing that ever happened to me," he whispered back. They bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, something that was theirs together, with a studio for Zara and an office for Grayson and room to grow. She kept her tiny apartment as a workspace, could not quite let go of the place where everything had started. He understood. Some places were too important to abandon. 2 years after they met, Zara got pregnant. It was unexpected and terrifying and perfect. She cried when she told him, standing in the kitchen of their brownstone, holding a pregnancy test like it might explode. "We are going to have a baby," she said, voice shaking. "We are going to have a baby," he repeated, and then he was picking her up and spinning her around and laughing like he had not in years. Their daughter was born on a Tuesday, because of course she was. They named her Grace, and she had Zara's eyes and Grayson's smile, and a set of lungs that suggested she would be artistic and opinionated like her mother. Zara took 6 months off from her art, then slowly started working again, creating pieces inspired by motherhood and love, and the strange journey that had brought her here. Grayson cut back on his travel, delegated more, learned that being present mattered more than being perfect. He taught Grace about hotels while Zara taught her about art. They were a family, strange and beautiful, and built on a foundation of misdelivered mail and terrible coffee. 5 years after they met, Zara had a retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art. Her work filled 3 rooms, sculptures that spoke of love and loss and hope and the space between things. Grayson walked through the exhibit holding Grace's hand, watching people marvel at his wife's talent, and felt a pride so overwhelming it almost hurt. "That is Mommy's art," Grace said, pointing at a sculpture. "It is. What do you think?" "I think Mommy is magic." "Me too, sweetheart. Me too." Zara found them in the second room, still wearing her exhibition opening outfit, looking tired and happy and radiant. "There is my family." Grace ran to her, and Zara scooped her up, kissed her forehead. Grayson joined them, wrapped his arms around both of them, and thought about that Tuesday morning years ago when he had decided to deliver mail himself, instead of leaving it with the doorman. The best decision he had ever made. "I love you," he told Zara, "not for the first time, not for the last." "I love you too," she said, "even though you still drink my terrible coffee. Especially because of that." That night, after Grace was asleep and the gallery lights were dark, they went back to Zara's old studio apartment. She had kept it, used it for storage and overflow work, but mostly she kept it because it was where their story began. They stood in the small space that felt even smaller now after years in the brownstone, and Zara pulled out an envelope from her desk drawer. "I kept it," she said. "The first piece of mail you ever delivered. I kept all of them, actually. Every single one." Grayson took the envelope, recognizing it as the one from that first Tuesday, the one that had given him an excuse to knock on her door. "Why?" "Because even then, I thought you might be important." "I did not know how important, but I had a feeling." She smiled. "Also because I am a pack rat and I keep everything, but mostly the first thing." He kissed her, there in the apartment that smelled like old coffee and new paint, where they had fallen in love over misdelivered mail and shared dreams. "Thank you for keeping terrible hours and making terrible coffee, and being the most amazing person I have ever known. Thank you for delivering my mail and staying for coffee, and seeing something in me that I did not see in myself." They locked up the apartment and went home to their brownstone, to their daughter sleeping upstairs, to their life that had started with a postal error and turned into something neither of them could have imagined. Grayson still hand-delivered Zara's mail sometimes, even though it all came to the right address now. Some habits were too good to break. On Tuesdays, he made sure to bring her coffee from the expensive shop, and she made sure to tell him he had nice teeth, and they laughed at their private jokes and inside references, and the strange, perfect way their lives had tangled together. They built sculptures and hotels and a family, and they did it together, partners in everything that mattered. Years later, when Grace was older and asked how her parents met, Zara would tell her about the mail that kept getting delivered to the wrong address, about the billionaire who hand-delivered it instead of having someone else do it, about falling in love over terrible coffee in a tiny apartment. Grace would ask if it was fate, if they were meant to find each other. "I do not know about fate," Zara would say, "but I know that your father was the best thing that ever happened to me, and it all started because the Postal Service made a mistake." "Best mistake ever," Grayson would add, pulling them both close. "Best mistake ever," Zara would agree. And on Tuesday mornings, when the light came through the windows of their brownstone and their daughter was still sleeping and the world was quiet and new, Grayson would bring Zara coffee, and she would smile that smile, the one that made him feel like he was standing in sunshine, and they would start another day of their imperfect, beautiful, hand-delivered life together. The end came not with drama or tragedy, but with peace. They grew old together, watched Grace grow up and become an architect who designed buildings to house her mother's art, watched their grandchildren discover their own passions. The brownstone filled with life and laughter and the sound of family. Zara continued creating until her hands could not hold the tools anymore, and then she directed others, passing on her knowledge and skill. Grayson eventually retired, leaving his empire in capable hands, choosing time with his family over boardrooms and conference calls. On a Tuesday morning, 40 years after they met, Zara made Grayson coffee. It was still terrible, watery, and too sweet, but he drank it anyway, the same way he had been doing for 4 decades. They sat in their kitchen, older and grayer, but still them, still in love, still making each other smile. "You ever think about that first day?" Zara asked. "When you showed up at my door with my mail." "Every Tuesday," Grayson said. "Best decision I ever made, delivering my mail, falling in love with you." She reached across the table and took his hand, her wedding ring catching the morning light, still fitted on her finger after all these years. "I am glad the post office messed up." "Me too." They sat in comfortable silence, drinking terrible coffee, watching the sun rise over Brooklyn, surrounded by a lifetime of memories and art and love. The mail that morning arrived at the correct address, the way it had for years, but Grayson still brought it to Zara personally, still used it as an excuse to make her smile. Some traditions were worth keeping, even when the reason for them had long since passed. Their love story had started with misdelivered mail and terrible coffee, with a billionaire who decided hand-delivering envelopes was worth it if it meant seeing a beautiful sculptor smile. It was a love story built on small moments and big gestures, on art and business and the space where they met in the middle. It was messy and perfect and real, and it lasted until their final days, until they had lived a full life together and could look back without regrets. In the end, that was all anyone could ask for, a love that started unexpectedly and lasted forever, built on a foundation of Tuesday mornings and terrible coffee, and the best postal mistake either of them could have imagined. Their story became legend in their family, passed down through generations, a reminder that love could be found in the most unexpected places, delivered right to your door if you were brave enough to open it.